Check, check, check. Okay, cool. Beautiful people. Beautiful people. We are back. This is season 2, the first episode of the new season. I'm sorry for the wait. It's been way too long, but I'm so excited to be back with each and every one of you. The community, missed y'all. So here we go. First things first, the reason why I put this out this week on February 1st is because it's my birthday week. Got a very special week planned. Shay took care of your boy. Got some surprises, I guess, ready to go. Some families coming in town, friends, etc. So, yes, the birthday is February 4th. Say it again for the people in the back. The birthday is February 4th, in case you were wondering. But again, I know this comes out a few days before. And yeah, just really excited for this whole week. And I wouldn't want to spend it any other way aside from coming back with the new season now. If you're new here, welcome. This show is all about people discovering their higher self through adversity, vulnerability, and self-love. Kind of an emphasis on vulnerability, if you will. I am your host, Justin Davis. Some of you may know me by JD. And we are back from a mini hiatus that was well-earned, well-deserved, and well-needed. So how's everybody doing out there? How you feeling? What's been going on with you while I've been on this break? I missed each and every one of you. I missed the community, and I would love to hear from you. Just check in, see what's going on. So today's episode is entitled Friends of the Opposite Sex While in a Relationship. Sticky? Yes. Complicated? Sure. Deal breaker? For some, I can only imagine. So today's guests are the Morrisons. I have Lauren and Chris, who are dear friends of ours. Chris and Lauren have been married for 13 years. They have 2 children together and have recently relocated their lives from Toronto, Canada, where they were both born and raised, and they moved down to the left coast, the west coast, sunny Los Angeles, in order to pursue new personal and family goals. Now, I've had Lauren on before in the past on Who Can Relate. We have a beautiful episode. If you guys haven't seen it yet, you should definitely check it out. We actually talk a little bit about Lauren's transition into the move, how it's affected her, how it's affected her family, etc. And so I was excited to have her and Chris on, and I knew that they'd be the perfect guests for this topic because, as you'll find out, Lauren and Chris have had their fair share of ups and downs when it comes to friends of the opposite sex while in their relationship and now marriage. And Shay and I discuss some of our own personal boundaries and deal breakers, etc. when it comes to that department. Now, this episode was recorded back in September 2021, a long time ago. I've been sitting on it, had it in the queue, ready to go. And again, I figured this is the perfect way to kick off season 2 with a bang. I'm excited for this one. So, before we get into all that, I just wanted to let you guys in on a little bit of some changes here for season 2. So the first thing is, I'm going to start every single episode with an intention. I did this in the first season, but I always kept it in like the bonus content at the end of the episode. So this season is going to be new. In the beginning of every episode, this is the intention. It can be a quote, it can be a mantra, or just something that resonates with me that I think relates to this particular episode. So today's intention is to hopefully give a lot of people who are in a sticky situation clarity, reassurance, and guidance on what to do and what works best for them. My quote of the day. This is something that really resonated with me the last couple of weeks, gearing up for the launch of season 2. And it comes from Mr. John C. Maxwell, one of my favorites. And he says, "If you lack vision, look inside yourself. Draw on your natural gifts and desires, and look to your calling if you have one." So, near and dear to my heart. Hope that resonates with you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Cue the intro music.
Let the best couple win.
You did great. You did great.
Oh my God.
Huh?
They're coupling up, Shay. We gotta start loving on each other.
So it's us versus them. Not.
That's the only thing I was afraid of with this seating arrangement was like
Guys versus girls.
Team girls.
It's not-
I'm
there's
like,
no-
oh
there's-
my God, come on.
We're team lovers.
Chris, did you take notes?
What?
What?
Not at all.
What's that, huh?
Huh?
What do you mean take
How's that
notes?
go?
He's got
Why do you have your phone
Chris has
out?
an outline.
Chris has an outline.
I love it.
I love to make sure I keep it all right here.
Love it. Okay. We good?
We're good.
We
Ready?
are very good.
Am I the only one that gets nervous right before this happens?
Oh, are you nervous? You nervous, Lauren?
Then I'm the only one.
I'm nervous,
no.
honey. I'm nervous, honey.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
I'm super nervous.
I'm not nervous.
You're not nervous.
Okay. So let's welcome to the show Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, Chris, Lauren,
And Shay Davis.
and the better half, Shay is back. We're back with another couples edition with a, can't think of another words. First thing that came to my mind, spicy topic.
Spicy.
Friends of the opposite sex while in a relationship. Now it's hot in here. Okay, so some of today's topics for the episode are: I trust you, I just don't trust them. The female versus the male perspective when it comes to this department. And let's define the word friend. And last but not least, boundaries and deal breakers. What are ours? What are yours? Let's get into it.
So for me, a friend or acquaintance, maybe someone whose phone number is in your phone. Maybe you guys were closer from before and you just keep in touch every now and again. They're a person that if you have like a celebration or you're throwing a party, you would invite them, that kind of thing. Not like random Facebook friends kind of thing, right? Like an actual someone who, I know your birthday, I wish you happy birthday, you wish me happy Mother's Day, whatever the case is, that's what I would probably define as a friend.
That's a great definition.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
There's really what friend has evolved over the course of our relationship. You know, friends when you're teenagers and in high school
Right.
could have been, they were more, let's say, voluminous. There's many more friends you had. Maybe they were more like acquaintances.
Quantity over quality, yeah.
Exactly. But now, you know, friends have taken on for us, I think, something, you know, there's a little bit more personal relationship touch point,
Yeah.
birthdays, but it's beyond someone on Facebook just saying hi
Sure.
on your birthday.
Right.
It's someone
Yeah.
who actually has an interest vested in that, as opposed to an acquaintance, which they're really, I would categorize
Distant.
a number of the people
Yeah.
at my work as acquaintances more than friends.
Okay. Do any of us have friends of the opposite sex? I mean, obviously, here we are. But aside from that, and if so, what's been our experience? I guess Davis can go first.
Oh, I was like,
So one thing for us that we've established from kind of the jump
yeah.
was friends of the opposite sex, fine, but some of the boundaries are you can't have any sexual relations in the past with that person, with that friend. Let's use our discernment and our judgment and know that, you know, any male friend in your life, there's nothing there for obviously him to you, and then vice versa. Any other boundaries that we've had or created?
I feel like a boundary I have is definitely like new friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's perfect because it's easier, I think, to say, oh, I've been friends with them for 6 years, 7 years, right? As opposed to, honey, I just met blank.
This person at the gym or
you know?
whatever. Yeah.
So I definitely think that's important too. What do you guys think?
And then I think how and when the hangouts are
Okay.
with friends of the opposite sex, having boundaries around that is important.
Okay. Unpack that a little bit.
Like one-on-one stuff. Like, I think unless there's an established like level of respect between, let's say, one of my guy friends and you, like, I don't know that I would like one-on-one hang out with him unless he's established something with you and you feel completely comfortable with that relationship.
Sure.
Yeah, one-on-ones are not permitted. Is
Boundary.
that a good word?
Well, it's a boundary.
It's a boundary.
It's a boundary.
It's a boundary. But I will say it is one-sided. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, because coming into our relationship, he didn't have female friends. I can think of maybe one.
Yeah, and it was more affording you the respect, what I view as respect, to say these are relationships that you may not be appropriate, you may not find appropriate. So I actually trimmed those. It wasn't that they weren't there, they were trimmed.
I did the same thing.
Is that news? Uh-oh.
Go.
Okay. It's just, interesting.
Yeah.
And thank you. But I was never consulted in the process.
Fair enough.
So it's just so really hard to say that, I find that might be unfair. It's not unfair. It's more just like, okay, if you did that for me, that's really nice of you. That's great. That's not a discussion that we ever had where you said that these are my friends and because I don't think that it's appropriate for you, I'm trimming them. And it was just sort of this thing that came out later on where it was just like, yeah, I had girlfriends, but I just didn't keep them around out of respect for you. I was like, I wasn't part of that. Probably would have been okay with it. But anyways, because I came into it of the mindset of, but again, I was just in a different place. I was a lot younger. I was coming out of a relationship immediately, like one to the other, whereby my male friends weren't an issue. Right. So it just took some time for me to adjust to someone saying like, no, this isn't okay. And I was like, but I have so many. I have so many, but I was also,
Yeah.
I have
Good
so
thing
many.
we dealt with that.
Yeah. No, but because I was in the music industry and it's very male dominated. So yeah, like I used to have a business with a team of all men. Right. And I'm usually always the only girl.
So it was a big adjustment when you
no
met
bueno.
Chris,
Yeah,
who
definitely.
was anti that.
And it was not so much that I was anti that, it was the interaction with the individual and her. Like Lauren, to her credit, wasn't shy. She brought them in front of me, and one by one, it was like, no, it's not going to work.
Oh, so you just would.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't. I would obviously be respectful.
Sure.
We'd have, and then if I didn't like the energy or
I was
the
just going
vibe
to say,
or
what
there
made you
were too many
feel
inside
or
jokes? So, you know what I mean? Like if there's that much rich personal previous history, and you feel like the one on the outside, yet you're the one who's with the person.
Yeah.
Their mom, and we to bring up a scenario. We went out with one individual, and we went to his parents' house, and they all had a lot of history and inside jokes, and we're like, well, okay, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like I'm in the relationship
so
here.
at that point that didn't have,
also just got there. Like,
but at that point that didn't have anything to do with like trust. It was more a comfortability factor.
yeah, comfort in that situation, and
probably respect though too. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if that's. I'm sure that's the same for women, but I think for men, there is something that we, whether consciously or subconsciously, are searching for in the other male friend. Like, why I'm here. We know why you're not here. And okay, you're like, keep going. It's like I'm a hype man. But it's real, and it's a kind of a unspoken thing, I think, between maybe it's just a alpha male. I don't know, but there's a certain energy that we know, like, okay, I like this guy. Right? You can kind of put your finger on it.
yeah.
I
Lauren
don't know,
has
it's
a
so
friend.
crazy,
Lauren
though.
has a friend.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you have a friend that is that has become one of my good friends, I would say, and he is probably like
he's
me
also
as
JD's
alpha.
good friend.
Is this
now,
Lawrence?
Yeah,
Look at
as
his
alpha. See,
Wait,
exactly.
Lawrence?
Shout out.
Why don't I know?
I've never met Lawrence, but I'm just virtually on the book club. But yeah.
Stand-up
Great
guy. Stand-up guy. He's also, shared things with me. We've formed a friendship, right? So I can look at someone like that and say, okay,
Sure.
he's married, he's got a child, like we both got our situations. So that was respect, right? Immediately came, shook my hand. There was I didn't sense any other sort of undertones based on the previous history, which they do have because they went to university
We
together.
didn't have any that kind of history.
Well, no kind of history.
So just platonic,
Platonic.
the whole time.
Platonic,
And how
right.
many years were you guys friends?
So university. So I don't know.
I guess up
20
until you met Chris.
early 20s. Yeah.
But to your point, for your original statement, it's something that people always say, I don't trust them.
Right.
Right. I trust you. I just don't trust them and their intentions. And that is something that's, to me, that's a very real statement.
I
I
agree and I
Oh.
disagree with that. I agree because I feel like when you say that to a child, like as a parent coming to a child, I can understand it 100%. But when you say it to another adult, like I feel like if I'm trusting him, I'm trusting that he's going to make the right decisions on either side, right? whether a girl comes on to him. This is making
Lauren is having-
She's not looking at me because it's a good side, but just feel the energy.
But I do feel like when you say that to a child, like if Zara or Kyra were hanging out with somebody that you didn't really trust, but you trust your child, children are so influential, at young ages. But as an adult, I feel that there becomes a time where they make their own decisions. And if you trust that person 100%, whether a girl or another guy comes on to them and tries to, like, if a girl tried to kiss Justin, I would trust that he would.
Yeah,
say
and,
no.
and to add to that too, and I'll even tie in the child and adult scenario. If a child wants to do something mischievous, they're going to do it, regardless. If an adult wants to step outside the relationship, they're going to do it, regardless. So for me, I don't like I trust you, I just don't trust them, because there's something underlining that you still don't really trust me then.
Interesting.
Personally, yeah,
That's
and like it just comes down to, like, we're bigger guys. I don't really know a scenario where unless I'm drugged, but I can handle myself in a situation. If someone's coming on to me, I can stop it. And again, it's just like, you also have to trust that I have enough discernment and enough respect for you that I wouldn't even entertain another friend of the opposite sex if I saw or felt anything there. So the whole I trust you, I just don't trust them, it's like, that shouldn't matter.
No, you shouldn't trust
I agree,
them.
but I do understand where Chris can be coming from, because I think that, we live in a world that people are crazy. Girls
Sure.
are crazy, guys are crazy. I
Yeah.
feel like girls are more crazy than guys,
Yeah.
to be honest, and sneaky and all of that stuff. But I do feel that you ultimately just have to 100% have the trust in your partner, where
I agree.
if Lauren was ever in a situation with another man and he tried to just, like, full on kiss her, I feel that, like, it comes down to, do you trust that Lauren will kiss him back?
Yeah, and I do trust that she would not. But I think there's, me taking that statement quite literally. When men and women are together over long periods of time and they're friends, and there may be feelings that were either unrequited or scenarios that are unfulfilled over time, yeah, I trust Lauren. But
Yeah,
if
but
they're
that's
hanging
where
around they may be hanging around for a reason. Intentions of which may not be fully transparent to Lauren throughout
100%.
Right. Oh, it's,
Yeah.
it would be
But that's where I
transparent to
think the
me.
healthy
Not
boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having a moment.
No,
right?
go ahead.
You may be thinking of individuals in particular, but I've been on the other side of the reason I arrived at the
But even
situation
if
with
they
you.
do,
I had
even
that
if they do
happen to
fall
me.
in love with me,
right?
because I'm pretty lovable,
Yeah.
okay? Like, then that's still on me to be like, to put our relationship at the forefront
Agreed.
and say, yeah, it's not like we can't control how you feel. I can't. And do I trust other women? Like, Chris, you are a beautiful, beautiful man who is extremely smart, ambitious. Like, you check all the boxes. You check
You're a catch.
all the goddamn boxes.
You're a catch.
JD, I feel awkward.
So you check all
You
the
should know.
boxes. Do I think for a second
That's why I set it up.
Do I think for a second that other women aren't likely to, be attracted to you or fall for you? Of course they are. Especially because when you enter into a room, you're not meek. You're Mr. Hey, everybody, everyone's best friend. And that smile is
Contagious.
infectious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I don't trust them.
I do think that that's where the healthy boundaries come in, and that's where you guys come together and have the discussion on
No,
what
I
those
respect
boundaries
the
are.
And that's the thing.
And Lauren does.
I fully respect the boundaries, and for me, it's a small price to pay, because Chris came into this being like nothing, nada, right? But he definitely started, I think with my best friend, the one who I was just like, I'll get rid of all of them. But like this one, that one, when we fell out, he and I fell out because of mine and Chris's relationship, because I just didn't know how to handle it. Things were moving really fast. And me and my best friend, like, we had this pact, because we were friends for years and years and years. And we almost had this pact. Mm-hmm. It's like, if another girl's not okay, if the other person's not okay with our relationship, then we just don't get into that relationship. And we were like, yeah, cool, blood brothers for life. But then once I got into a situation where I was like, hold on, but I don't want this one to go. Like, I'm not because I'm not going to be with you. I know that I'm not going to be with you. I know that I'm not going to marry you, but I really want to see where this one goes. And I was just very conflicted. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to have the discussion. I didn't know how to paint the boundaries. And then, you know, he was becoming more resentful. It was not being dealt with. And suddenly it was just like, you know what, forget you. But
on his part,
I think on his part, but then I allowed it, you know what I
Okay.
mean? Cause I was kind of like, oh, that's easier. You know, maybe that's easier.
sure.
So, and you know what? I don't fault Chris because it's not an easy relationship to swallow. It's not an easy relationship for a girl and a guy to be like, we're best friends. We're best friends. We used to date like for a month, and then we realized we're better friends. And, you know, we've got this tight bond, all these inside jokes. He knows things about my childhood. He's the person that I brought around to all the family events. Like he was in there. So I can understand that being very uncomfortable, the same way that it was very uncomfortable for his now wife to come into the picture and be like, sorry, she's who?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
If you don't like her, you can go. It's like, what? Right? That's tough. And I do respect and I do understand that. And I also am very grateful that, you know, as Chris and I progressed in our relationship, I came to him and I said, you know what? I'm very happy with our life. I just can't help but feel like there is this hole. When I envisioned my life, when I envisioned my family, when I envisioned my first kid's birthday party, I look around and someone's missing.
Sure.
Someone's missing for me. And you know what? He very graciously bent for me.
Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris very graciously bent for me. And it was like, hey, you know, you can do this, but it's going to be on my terms. And we're going to form a relationship. And from that best friend of mine to just see Chris in a different light, because he didn't like him at first, obviously, took his friend away.
Sure.
But when he started, he was just like, you know, I remember we went to dinner at their house and he was just like, he's just so cool. Like, I love him for you. Like, I had all these different thoughts of who Chris was. And once Chris saw that respect, and it was just like, you got, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Definitely. And
that was a changer. So
It is for us.
right.
It
Yeah.
comes down
it's
to
not gonna
sometimes
happen.
just that.
And it's not going to happen with all of them.
Right. No.
So that's
no.
why, you know, there's a limited few of valuable, let's say, quality friendships. And those may be able to persevere. But I think this has been sort of illuminating for both of us on this journey. And, you know, we play with his kids, right? Like his kids have stayed at my house, my kids have stayed at their house. So we've got past that.
So again, back to the boundaries though. When would you guys say then, like, these were established in your relationship with each other? And was it, so was it forced or was it an organic moment?
At first it was very forced because again, I needed to be told because they were running. There were so many.
So, and on that note, Lauren, in your world, did you see that as just completely normal? And that any relationship you decided to be in, you just thought everything would just carry on?
I had a very difficult time adjusting. I had a difficult time adjusting, but not just because of that part, but there were so many things changing. Like, Chris and I went from, like, Chris was this guy that I had a crush on at the office that I never thought I would ever stand a chance with.
Got it.
Right? That I never thought that I would get. And then all of a sudden, one day he turns around, he's like, I like you back. And like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, I don't know what to do with that. And it went from like, I like you back to like, you know, let's buy an apartment together. Let's stay, you know, let's start saving up for a house together. Let's get pregnant. And like, it was all moving so quickly. And I was 24.
Wow.
He was a full human. He was a full human.
Lauren used to say, I have recycling boxes.
He was one of those, like, to me, he was like, he was taking recycling boxes out to the end of the driveway on Thursdays, and he had big
you're an
people
adult.
problems.
Yeah.
He's an adult.
Yeah.
He was meeting with lawyers. He had an accountant. You know what I mean? He was 6-figure salary. It was all very intimidating.
Sure.
And then for that person to come in and be like, this, and this won't work. You just feel like there's this shock. And there's this, like, you know, there's almost like a loss of self, but I just knew that nothing was worth the price. There wasn't any cost that he was putting to me that I was saying to myself, that's not worth it. because I had to find out where this was going to go. And as scary as it was, I was like, I will not, I need to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking from the force, to your point, your original question about was it forced or organic? I was coming into it from the mindset that I'm investing and I'm putting forward parts of myself. I'm making a commitment to someone, and I'm not playing the field anymore.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, you're saying, well, wait a minute. And do you want to bring all of them?
Well, because you were going into your second round,
Exactly.
right? You're going into your second round, and you're like, you're going into your second round. You're just like, I've already played and lost. We're de-risking the sugar out of this.
Yes.
Exactly.
Thank you for the editing. Time saver. My mind went to, because I'm sure a lot of the audience, we know you, Chris, but a lot of the audience, if they don't, I don't want them to be like, he's controlling.
Absolutely.
Because he came in and said yes, no, and no if and buts about it. So I just give you an opportunity to maybe explain that a little bit more. And obviously it's good context. This is your second round at this point.
Absolutely.
So it's like, look, I know what doesn't work, right? And I know what I'm comfortable. I know now what my new boundaries are, et cetera. So if you want to have the floor, just maybe to...
Yeah, and appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good looking out. I'm not crazy. No, for me, in that situation, it was never a point of trapping. It was never a point of, you must be here. If you want to be with me, here are my boundaries.
Yeah.
And it was setting of the boundaries. Now, could I have said it more eloquently at the time? Perhaps. But when you discover 1, 2, 3, and then you're in number 4, you're like, something about this doesn't feel good on my respect meter. This doesn't feel like you respecting a future long-term relationship.
Can I ask a question?
Husband and future father.
At that point, did you have you already met him?
Or any
of them,
yeah.
but I'm speaking of the one in particular.
I was learning about them at that point. I don't think I had met.
No, I don't think they'd met. Like, I think there was no.
Okay.
No.
And my dating history, I a lot of the women that I had been with sort of recognized me as the alpha, and we had that sort of immediate recognition. It was never in doubt. It was never
to be trained.
It was never, but it was never in question. The fact that I even had to have this conversation to me, context for your viewers, was a bit annoying. So of course I would come out at it to say, oh, okay, this is what I'm used to. Former athlete, definitely from a collegiate standpoint, great academically, work successful. Why am I having to even have this argument?
Right.
Like, why would I need to entertain that?
Because I'm the alpha on my side.
Well, it's interesting because what I also hear is what is important to you on a certain level may not be to your partner, right? So for you, this is like a very black and white, very simple, what I don't understand what you don't understand kind of thing, right? But sometimes it's not, it's more colorful than that, right?
Yeah.
So was there any moment where there was a pushback from you, Lauren, as far as Chris's stance, his boundaries? Where you're like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, lots of standing. There was. It was just frustration on my part, because I'm just like, I don't understand. Like, I understand, but I'm like, even if I'm willing to play with your boundaries, right? Like, why does this have to be? And especially because, like, people were getting cut off because of respect things that I couldn't wrap my head around. I was just like, I was there the whole time. I watched it happen.
Yeah.
But there, again, it's the undercurrent. It's, you feel fine, no problem. But it was just, like I said, it was a lot. And I think that I was trying to be reasonable by saying, okay, fine, 20, too much. I get you. But 2, right? 3, or whatever the case was. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of pushing back. And I think even to this day, we're still playing with boundaries a little bit, you know what I mean? But I'm overly transparent now. Like, I'll come and I'll say, oh, I had a conversation with so-and-so, and I can still see it kind of irritates him a little bit, but he's just pushes it down to just because I'm trying to be very transparent. It's like, whatever I'm talking about, you're hearing, like, I'm not keeping secrets or anything like that. So
Okay, so we're moving along smoothly here, right? How you guys feeling about the episode? You good? Okay. So we've broken down our rules/boundaries and are feeling pretty good about, the dialogue here. But just in case some of you are still thinking or wondering if there's any insecurity from both parties, could be male, could be female, when it comes to the pushback on friends of the opposite sex while in a relationship. So for me personally, back when I was younger, I was more open to this idea. I also was quantity over quality, and you're talking like late teens, early 20s, right? As I got older, I was, not as naive, and I was a little bit more like, well, I mean, has he ever tried anything with you, or has there ever been any type of hint or indication that he would want to have anything with you more than friends, etc.? So I started a peep game. And I just was curious from the audience's standpoint of what has been your specific experience when it comes to your partner saying, no, I don't want you to have any friends of the opposite sex while in this relationship. It has nothing to do with my insecurity. I am very secure within myself, etc. But in the meantime, I give Chris an opportunity to further explain his stance on this. What you got, Chris? I can also see if someone's listening or watching thinking, still, I hear you, but it sounds controlling. And I wonder if they're thinking, and this is out of respect and love for you, but the question is, was there any type of insecurity with friends of the opposite sex, right? Because I believe it was just like, look, I know it works for me, I know it doesn't. Let's just save time here. And I respect the hell out of that because that would save a lot of people time. But was there any point in time, any insecurity with Lauren having friends of the opposite sex?
It wasn't Lauren, but that question, I've asked that question of myself. Why is it that I had that? There were two sort of major scenario situations that aren't all of Lauren's doing. One was Lauren and the other was from my past. One, I'll just quickly talk about Lauren's. Lauren was very transparent with me when we first got together. She described the circumstance with her ex before me.
The guy friend that we've been talking about?
Her former boyfriend.
Okay.
And how he would just sort of be okay with all of this. Mm-hmm. And I got to hear that story and think through, how does that play out for me? How would I have felt if I was at a club and all of those things were happening around me and I felt like just sort of this. So I got to actually put myself in his shoes and said, wow, that's not how I would want to have my relationship conducted. So it's better that I inform Lauren now so that we're not in one of these more contentious situations. And that way she could say no.
Sure.
If that wouldn't work for her, right? Because I didn't want her to feel trapped in any way. This was like one of the happiest occasion of our life. We're coming together. We're excitement. We're buying Gucci sunglasses. We're doing all kinds of things. We're going on trips. I didn't let
you buy the Gucci sunglasses.
You lost those, right?
No, I didn't lose them, but I didn't trust myself, so I said, please do not buy them for me.
So, that level of transparency that she gave me allowed us to accelerate that conversation. Otherwise, we would have been in a process of discovery that would have taken
trial and error.
And it may have led to more fighting, right? Yeah. But at least we got it out there. The second is I had a very close best friend who confided in me, and I knew his girlfriend, and she had guy friends, and it eventually went wrong. So maybe and he was my closest guy friend, and she put me in a situation where I had to either tell him or not tell him, and she knows that I know, and then at some point I would take the fall for it. And that's tough. I thought I shouldn't stay out of it.
Sure.
And it cost me my best friend through high school.
Yeah.
And so that still looms large for me because he was so we were like the minute I hit that high school, it was me and him. And we formed a bigger crew, but we were friends since then. And just to know that he was hurt that much, about to be hurt that much, and I would extend myself to tell him the truth, and it cost me that friendship. So it's in that scenario continues to play out in my mind when I see, okay, would you tell me? Am I trusting too much? There's definitely an issue there.
I think no matter what you would have done in a situation like that, I think the outcome would have been the same.
Yeah. And I also, the reason why I asked that question is I have been saying this often because it just, I can't think of a scenario where it doesn't play in. Reference point is everything. So for you, that is your experience with this particular situation. So that's why it makes sense to you. That's why you're very clear, cut and dry, black and white. And I love it. And I also love, again, that you stick to it, because I'm pretty sure we've all been in a situation where we've finessed our boundaries to really try to make something work. And in reality, after the trial and error, you're like, I should have just stuck with my boundaries, right? Yeah. But that's how you really set true, solid boundaries. It made me think too, because this was something, I took an Instagram poll on friends of the opposite sex while in a relationship. Is it possible / realistic? And there were a lot of messages about, yes, but they just can't be good looking.
Isn't that interesting?
And I was like, okay, well, what are we all supposed to, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I can't walk around with a bag over my head, or, I can't, whatever. So just curious about that. If that was ever like but that one, no.
Purely coincidental. It's funny, this topic, and you weren't aware of this, but it was run on a local LA radio station Friday.
Oh, wow.
No way.
Where they had women calling in, men calling in, and I listened. I was dropping the kids at school, and I was listening and shaking my head. I knew this was coming, and I'm like,
oh, this is going to be good.
That's so funny.
Market research for this topic.
Yeah. Sure.
And surprisingly, a number of women called in and said, you know what? I don't think it can work if there's any sort of emotion, any sort of historical point of reference where there was an emotional, wanting, longing, anything like that. If there's any of that, it just can't work. So to your point, good looking, that may be another form of wanting. Yeah, that on the part of the significant other who's perceiving those looks, absolutely that may be a problem. But I didn't have that reaction.
Okay.
That wasn't my point, and I think men and women are different in this regard. I think women are much more, have much greater depth as it relates to some of their relationships, and can look past certain men's flaws.
Oh yeah.
And a love can blossom out of a friendship because of that respect, because women are able to look past those things and see things.
Yeah, well, that's that's why it's like emotional cheating is arguably worse than the physical act of cheating, because that emotional connection, right? And so I agree. For me, I've never had a issue with how the person looks. It's just more about what's the history behind the friend,
and how transparent your partner is being
and
with that friendship.
The communication, right, has to be there. But the looks for me was never there. Why are you laughing?
Sorry. So when we were in Toronto and Chris was coming to LA for 3 weeks, I was hanging out with like neighbors and everything like that. And I was talking about, I feel embarrassed to tell this story. Okay. But I was talking about how, Chris is there and he's going to go look at places. And then I pulled up a picture of Shay, and all the guys were just like, he's not finding a place anytime soon.
Oh, God.
He was like, are you sure you want that house? You don't want to go check out a few more?
Yeah.
Feel like you got new followers or whatever the case is. But it was just like, it was the good looking thing, obviously. He's just like, but no one ever questioned, like, Lauren, you okay with this? Like, no one ever questioned that. It was like this joke of like, Chris is going to be looking for houses for months. Like, he's not gonna
but it's on a serious note. That's, I think, a lot of men are like, well, what does he look like? Or if it's like, does he hoop, or does he, you know what I mean?
Well, actually, it's interesting you say that, because I don't think it's a looks thing as much as it's like an interest thing. Like, I think that I think it's for you too, but if Chris were to be like, oh, I got this friend and she's beautiful, I'd be like, I don't think he'd say that. That'd be weird for him to say.
This is Katie. She's beautiful.
She's beautiful. She's probably the most gorgeous girl you've ever seen. But if he had a friend who was like a female friend of the opposite sex who was like super into anime or super into James Bond movies or super into football, or she's like a Chicago Bears fan, I might be like, ooh. Similarly, I think that it was more an issue because I don't share that interest with Chris. Right. And I know that those are big passions of his. For me, music and hip hop was my big passion. I always felt like if someone was in the music industry, there was that lure that was more a threat versus how someone looked.
That's
right?
a very
I
good
agree.
point. Because I also was thinking too, like, I think for me, if and when I feel like I either can't compete with that or compare to that, I'm like, now I just have to limit this time then spent. You know what I mean? Because I recognize my weakness, but here's my strength.
Yeah.
Right. Or here's what's in my corner. So it's a very, very good point. I also think too, it's, I think that's a common reason why cheating happens. Right. So you're not getting something fulfilled in some way, shape, or form. It's like, I just don't understand. I don't know what happened. It's like, I've been asking you to spend, to go and just spend time with me.
Right.
Every time I call you and want to tell you about my day, you're too busy. It's like, that's important to me. Right. So say something.
No, I was just going to kind of segue into, do you guys, like, on that topic, do you feel that it's appropriate for friends of the opposite sex for your partner to confide in them?
Good question.
That's a very good question.
Like,
I
how
wish
would
you
you
would.
feel?
That was not a part of the script. Sorry.
Do you feel?
I wish you would, but honestly, it's not just, honestly, I would be, I think I'd be okay with that. And again, you don't know until you know, but okay, if she likes football and she likes anime, maybe I'm not okay with it, right?
It just depends.
Maybe I'm just looking because she's looking for an opening, and like, all she needs to hear is like, oh, she's pissing me off again. Oh, is she? Do you like cake?
But isn't it interesting that you constructed that narrative around having that friend that looking for the chink in the armor? And I get the question, but it's interesting that.
No, but that's what I'm saying is that I would feel away. But on the other side of it, like, I actually, and I think I've talked about this before on one of the 7 podcasts we've been on together lately, where I really do, I say I wish you would, in a sense that, like, if we do have an argument, I want you to get someone else's perspective. I want you to get thought diversity in terms of solving it, because I go and I get other people's perspective. And, I remember even going to my male friend about something, and he went and called you right afterwards. So I was like, so there's just no loyalty here. But
now auditioning for female friend.
Because he was just like, you're being stupid. Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Blah 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 blah. And he's like, I'm gonna go warn Chris. Right? Yeah. So, but so and from that perspective, like, I do appreciate thought diversity when it comes to working through problems. So I would think that I would be okay with you confiding in someone else.
I'm thinking as well.
I feel like for me, there would be layers to that question, because certain people, yes, like if you went to Lauren, if you went to Shan, if you went to somebody on that level, I think I'd be okay with it. Okay. But if you went to a girl that you just met at the gym a year ago, like, it would be like,
right.
no.
But I mean, I met Lauren a year ago, but I understand.
Yeah, but there's a level.
I
like,
got you. It's not about the time. It's just the level of where the friendship is. Yeah, because I also appreciate thought diversity as well. And there's often times where we're at a disagreement. I'm like, I wish you could go talk to another one of my male friends to just understand or just see the perspective. And because a lot of times it's in the delivery, and maybe I'm being a terrible person delivering this, but I think it's important. But I also, there's boundaries, right, in the sense of, like, it can't be personal.
Yeah.
For either of us, and it also can't be something that is extremely sensitive to either of us. If I opened up about vulnerability for whatever it is, and you're over here pillow talking with John, I'm going to be like, okay, well, that's not cool.
But honestly, my answer to that question would be the same even if you were going to a guy friend. Like, I think it's important for you to choose the right guy friend. Like, if you have a guy friend that's, like, out in the clubs, like, cheats on his wife, does all this, and that's who you're going to, I would feel the same way as if you were going to a random girl that I have yet to establish a level of respect.
Yeah, and I do share with guy friends when we have that. So to your point about getting diversity of thought, but it's still sharing it with a woman. Often, again, it depends on the level. To your point about layers, so it's hard for me to say that carte blanche.
I want to be fair here, because I know I'm sitting here being all like, Chris can do whatever he wants. It's totally cool. But
now auditioning.
Doesn't sound like that. I want to mock myself that way. Chris could do whatever he wants. I do want to be fair, because I have said to my previous boyfriend, when I didn't think other female relationship was going okay. And I just want to be fair, because in this, same scenario, but what if someone else is confiding in Justin continuously, and he's being that emotional ear for someone who maybe it's a person in my case, it was a woman at his office, and they would go to lunch every day. Fine. Then it was like pouring out all the boyfriend problems every single day. And I was like, all right. Then it was like, calling because now he's so intimate in terms of the details of everything. And I was just like, I don't like where this is going, because as things progress and continue to get worse and you're the ear for this person, now like the phone calls will start coming in later. Then it's going to be meetups. And it was like a recipe, and she fulfilled all of them. It was like, can you just meet me at coffee time? Like, I'm really stressed out about this right now. And he's like, can I go? And I was like, I don't feel like you can.
Did she take any initiative to get to know you?
She didn't take initiative, but this was just like another person.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's not necessarily a friend. It's not it's a friend. It's a new person that I don't have access to because this is a work colleague. Yeah. Okay, no problem. But I don't think that I would be okay with my husband being the sole confidant for another woman.
Sure.
Like, you do have other friends. I don't mind the odd, like, spitballing, let me get a male perspective. But when you start relying on them as if they're the sole person, I feel like that's a slippery slope.
Sure.
So
Boundaries.
that's what I'm saying. It is boundaries. And I think that, what Chris did in terms of, like, if things didn't happen, stopped happening between me and Chris, and I had to go on to another one, I'd probably have a whole new list of boundaries, right, of do's and don'ts, because I'm getting older. I'm not trying to waste my time. Right. And these
which was you.
Which was you, which was like, like I'm not 23 years old just figuring it out. Like I've been around the road. I know what's going to work for me, what's not going to work for me. If you don't have a job, that's not going to work for me. If you don't, I'm not going to list boundaries.
Someone was taking notes. But go ahead. Someone was like, go ahead.
They got to one.
You got one, and I ran out of ideas. But either way, like, I know that I would probably have that new list. And I think as we get older, and you talk a lot about being in your 30s and the shift that happens when you're in your 30s, like, you just become a lot more intentional. That was the energy that Chris was bringing into our relationship. Yep. That I hadn't been exposed to before. And I know that if I had to do it again at this point in my life, I'd be bringing very similar energy into the relationship.
Yeah. Well, it's unapologetically very intentional.
Absolutely.
It's just like,
and I really appreciate you saying it, you acknowledging it, because that like we started with, it depends on what point in time where you are in your life. And all of those things matter.
Sure. Yeah. I see that. And I was actually going to add on to it, because I feel like you're that for a lot of people. But what makes me feel comfortable is the transparency and how much you include me in those conversations. It's not like you're, leaving the house to go have some private hour conversation with a woman that I don't even know or am not comfortable with.
What's funny?
He's getting paid for it.
Well, there's consultations now.
There you go.
A little bit of breaking the action. Your boy's back here to narrate something that's going to be interesting, I think, for the audience to hear. So, in my past, I have been very vocal and very clear on the fact that I was raised by a single mother. I was also raised by a committee of women, and so I'm very comfortable around women. I've been realizing the last couple of years that there's a really big need and want from me to continue to have that type of feminine energy around me. I love my wife with all my heart. This has nothing to do with having my cake and eating it too by any means, but there is something that, I don't know, I just operate at like a better level when I'm around feminine energy sometimes. And so what you're about to hear is me going into just that, and then Lauren actually not only agreeing with me, but then relating to me from her stance on this, but with the masculine energy. So let's get into it. Back to that click in your 30s. Like, I knew I was very comfortable around women, but in my 30s, I realized that not the same thing, but I kind of need it.
Yeah.
because it's a sense of familiarity.
I'm there too, but on the
Right.
men's side.
Right. Yeah.
I'm much more attracted to male energy. It's easier for me to be around male energy.
Same.
And I was joking with Chris because Chris was like, "Oh, you haven't hugged me in weeks." And I was like, I was meant for the platonic, right? Because I'm not very, I love being around male energy, but I never have a need to like be, I'm a cold, I can be very cold from an intimacy perspective. And Shannon and I are obviously very, very different from that perspective.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's like, that's why for me, platonic male friendships are easy because I never have a desire to be like, like I never have that. And, but I just feel more me in those spaces.
1,000,000% relate and agree. And I was thinking, like, you just touched on something that I don't think I've ever put into perspective, but that's exactly how I feel as well, in the sense of like, I'm not the affectionate person by nature, and I have to like something I'm working on. But I wonder if it stems from anything from like a platonic standpoint with my friends with women or family, with women. I'm not affectionate with them. So it's just like, maybe my subconscious goes, woman, not don't touch, but just like, I'm not overly affectionate. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do the platonic very well.
So do I.
But to sometimes a fault in our own relationship, because I can very quickly treat Chris like my best friend, right? Very quickly treat him like my best friend. And he has to like remind me sometimes to be like, hey, also kind of your husband. But that was something, even like my nickname growing up, like my parents gave me, was Couldn't Care Less Bear, because of how unaffectionate I was. And Chris has gotten the most affectionate version of me. Like this is Lauren on affectionate speed right now.
Lauren.
This is love, Lauren. Like no one else gets this. And it was usually a very even for between me and Shan, growing up we had a lot of conflict because she wanted that affection from me, and I was like, well, it's like always kind of pulling away from that. So but like all my favorite movies are like those, like bromances are my favorite movies.
Not the rom-coms.
No, not the rom-coms. If the less females in the movies, the better for me. I like that energy more.
That is, we can relate.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, you that's us. That's me in this marriage, because I
do like you though, Shay.
Okay, forging new relationships.
But it's something I'm like, we've been, like, I think last night we were just saying, like, we do need to do better at date nights and take more trips together, because otherwise we're just roommates, and I'm like, I can easily do that. I love you so much and you're my best friend, but there needs to be but you're also my wife, and the intimate side of love. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I think to conclude this amazing episode, I appreciate everyone's transparency here and opening up, our marriages to the flies on the wall. In conclusion, friends of the opposite sex, is it possible? And if so, how?
It's possible, but the other person needs to, one, be okay with the boundaries, and two, ensure to form a relationship with the other person's partner to make sure that there is complete transparency.
Okay.
I would just piggyback off that and say yes in all of the things that she said.
Chris?
Definitely possible.
Yeah.
I've evolved. I've evolved.
In this hour.
I'm also auditioning for female friends with an appropriate level of energy.
She cannot like anime or football. She cannot be a Chicago Bears fan. That is for damn sure.
Oh, wow. Boundaries got put up quick. But yeah, I think, you know what? It taking a village to be in a relationship, I think, we focus on our relationship first and the health of that. And just as long as we're communicating and checking in and making sure that we manage this, however the relationships may come at us, I think that's important. And the level of transparency between you guys, that's what you need to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, piggybacking off of all three of you, transparency is 100% big thing. Communication then with that transparency. And I think it's gotta be a equal level of respect between both, the partners involved, because I've realized too, like, what's important to me may not be important to you on that level, and vice versa. So it's like, if you're like honey, I'm really kind of stern on this. You know, even if in my heart of hearts, I'm like, she has nothing to worry. But it's like, I respect that.
I mean, it comes down to you respecting, like how Chris said, just respecting the comfortability level behind everything.
Yeah. All right, that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed the episode. It felt so good to be back. I can't wait to hear all the feedback. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave a review and a rating while you're there. Be nice to hear from you on that side. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and comment. Again, would love to hear from each and every one of you on that side of things. And if you or someone you know could relate to this episode, please share it. Sharing the show is the best way to grow the show. So until next week, feels so damn good to be back. To each and every one of you, thank you, thank you, thank you.